Alrighty, what's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? Seamus and Marco's here again with another episode of the Macro Perspective. Hey guys, just a little housekeeping before we go. You might start seeing a little bit of some changes in the pod here as we're going along. We're getting some episodes going, maybe a little change on the logos, changing some things. Who knows? Just wanted to get you guys knowing that. But with that being said, before we start, we do like to say, hey, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share. That's how we get our virality. And whoever the guest on we have for the day, that's how we can get their message out there. Plus, you might be supporting a small business. You never know. With that being said, team, today, the person we did get referred to us by another Nick, Nick Newald, recommended Nick Chermol here. And I think this is going to be a great conversation. A little bit off the screen here, we're just talking about life. Nick has his own podcast, and he always brings it back to sobriety. So, I'm actually very interested in this conversation. I think I'm going to find a lot of enlightening things. So for you guys out there, perk up those ears, listen up. You might need to take a note or two or listen to this again, because this is going to be a perspective for y'all that you're going to enjoy. Nick, would you mind just introducing yourself to the audience and kind of what you've been up to and what you're excited about, man?
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for the intro, Seamus. I have my own podcast. It's about sobriety. I tie it in. And what I really found interesting about this podcast was it's so many of the elements that I try to bring through like my guests or whatever I know onto my podcast. And so I just thought it was super cool. Like the idea that I am a guest on a podcast now, like I really like that idea. And for me, sobriety is like a way of life. It's an everyday thing. And so just bringing that in with everything that I do, I just try to bring that message to other people my age who maybe don't look at sobriety as something like cool or exciting, because I think there's a lot of benefits that people are missing out on.
Yeah. And Nick, why don't you let the audience know how old you are? Because I think that's also like super imperative for people to understand.
All right. Yeah. So I'm 22 and I got sober when I was 20. And so I'm almost 3 years sober now in a couple months.
And when you say sober, though, what are we abstaining from?
Basically everything except caffeine. I mean, I could have nicotine, but I have also given up nicotine. So no booze, no weed, no drugs.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, okay. So you obviously, so many ways to take this. I guess my first question would be like, was it like a proverbial rock bottom that you hit that led to you having this moment of understanding you wanted to get sober? Or was there someone in your life that kind of sat you down and had that intervention moment? Like, what does that look like? I'm sure you may touch on this on your podcast, but for all the people that we don't, that doesn't know you from our, group.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. And something that I just want to like let you guys know before, or like as we go through this, like don't be afraid to ask anything about sobriety. Like, oh, maybe this is like a weird, I don't know. Cause I have like, my whole message is this should be something that's you can talk about and everything. So, but for me, it was sort of a little bit of both in regards to why I got sober. Like, did I hit a rock bottom? Was there an intervention? It was a little bit of both, but yeah, basically, so I said it in my podcast, the exact sort of maybe rock bottom, you could call it, was, to put it plainly, like I got my girlfriend for her birthday a ton of drugs as here's like my present for you, that type of guy. Got her all those. And then basically I took one pill. And then I woke up 4 days later with no memory. And so the pills that I took were Adderall and Xanax, but I remember taking one Adderall pill. And then I woke up 4 days later with no memory and no more pills. And when I woke up from that, it still took me a couple weeks to actually get sober, but that was like a really defining point. There was several other instances, near-death experiences before that, but this was like the real brought me down to my knees. And then within a couple weeks, I got sober, and then honestly, the rest it's been pretty up from there.
Ooh, so I've actually not shared this story with a lot of people outside of my close friend circle, but I had a moment like that, maybe not to that level of severity, in high school. And Vegas is a very, you can get your hands on everything type of city. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
wow, I can imagine.
I wasn't a bad kid. You know, I was actually graduated valedictorian. Um, somehow, even amidst all the scandalous bullshit I would try to pull as a kid. But I remember we actually were stealing my buddy's mom's, I want to say it was Xanax. And I think we mixed it with literally like caffeine and a bunch of other bullshit, like stupid, like 16-year-old bullshit, like snorting, you know, these things thinking we were cool. And I remember waking up the next morning and hearing my iPhone ringtone. And, you know, normally it's all bubbly and kind of happy and like kind of like, you know, like dun, 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 right? Normally wakes you up, right? And it was like, dun, 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 dun. I was like, what is going on? Why is everything so warped in time? And that was literally like the last time I touched anything that was like in a pill form. Because I literally was like feeling like I was on death's doorstep. My mom picked me up from my friend's house and I was just like, she's gonna fucking know. And nah, that wasn't my sobriety story. My sobriety story happened because of mushrooms, and that was like a year later. But yeah, like literally got like Jesus scared into me. I was like, yeah, I probably should not like partake in anything anymore because same thing. It's like, you know, like what's the point? And it's actually really easy when you surround yourself with people that have a lot of like very, you know, similar kind of things that they're going after, whether it's like performance related things in fitness or business endeavors. And, you know, the thing that they seek more joy in is just like quality time, like enjoying life versus like the drugs, you know? So I can imagine like you waking up 4 days later, bro, like, yeah, you're like, wait a minute, like, weren't we like having a bender on like the 17th? It's the 21st now. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you touched on a lot of good points there, but specifically the one like, what's the point? Like that question, I think might be the difference between maybe, I don't know, like there's somebody who has a problem or like doesn't, because the first thing that I did when I woke up after that was go and try and find more pills, you know, because I was so low. And that sort of like ringtone story that you had where it's like everything feels just like crushingly down, like I felt that too. And so I just needed something to bring me back up. It was also winter, you know, so the elements were also, I don't know, I get that seasonal stuff. So yeah, a whole mix of all that.
Yeah, like that, the sad seasonal affectiveness disorder, kind of where you're just, yeah, and you're in a, so you go to school at Penn State, but like, are you from Pennsylvania? Are you from like a Midwest town?
No, I'm from right outside of like Philadelphia, so. But I was at Penn State when this happened.
Okay.
You're studying at Penn State right now. What's your degree in?
Business. I take I got a minor in Mandarin too, so that's pretty fun. And then
this guy's gonna take over the world right here. This guy's gonna take over the world, business and Mandarin, and basically understanding the market. Nah, man. No, dude, I hear that. Could I ask like how you got into probably taking drugs?
Into taking it. This is like one of those like soul searching kind of things, because on the surface level it's sort of just like, I don't know, like my friends were like, let's smoke weed, and I'm like, hell yeah, that's what we're supposed to do at this age, smoke weed, let's drink, that's what we're supposed to do. But then I quickly became that one friend where it was like the group suggests let's do this once a month, and I'm like, no, we have to find out how to do this every weekend, every single day that it's possible. So in terms of that why, a little more fuzzy. A little more fuzzy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Was your first
so it was
time
mostly
smoking weed in like 8th grade?
Yeah, the first time that I used anything was weed.
What grade were you in?
Is that what, were you asking that?
Yeah. What grade were you in when you tried it?
Dude, I was actually 17, so I was a sophomore in high school. So my career wasn't that long. Sophomore high school to like sophomore of college.
Yeah. And so it was weed, but then you got into like harder stuff?
Oh, well, booze was like 2 weeks later. And then,
Okay.
so I mean, like, I don't know. Do you want like sort of maybe a little breakdown of how it all went down? Maybe?
Yeah,
Dude,
give a
do it.
breakdown
Yeah.
because
Give it a
I
breakdown. Yeah,
think
All
no
right,
judgment,
a
just
little
figure
bit
it
of a
out.
breakdown.
yeah.
So basically, it was, started out with weed. Really liked weed. That was amazing. And then that quickly progressed to alcohol. And then those two became an all the time thing. But for me, I was always so involved in sports. It was a 365 thing. And then my senior year of high school, I got diagnosed with this heart condition, bicuspid aortic valve. So it's something that I was born with, but they never detected it. But one of the things, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this,
Yeah.
but yeah, so one of the things is like the way that you work out has to change. You can't do like high exertion things where like basically when you're holding your breath while pushing really hard, stuff that raises your blood pressure really high out of nowhere, you can't do. So that means no more football, according to the doctor. And it also meant no more of this weight training program that I usually did in the winter. So that senior year, I had a lot of free time now because I'm not doing that stuff anymore. And then bang, out of nowhere, drugs are just on my mind. And then every other weekend, or well, like then eventually psychedelics, I got introduced to them pretty quickly. And then that became like a ritual. I mean, because there's that like 2 week period where after you take psychedelics, you can't take them again because they won't work.
Supposedly,
Yeah.
right? That's like I think that's like an urban legend, but
What
Well, I don't know
psychedelics?
because
Which ones are you taking?
I was doing it was acid,
oh,
shrooms, and then we like theoretically we cooked DMT once, but I mean it still got us high, but it didn't do it like what Joe Rogan would say it would do. So I don't know. It was like a lighter effect of acid, but it was pretty sick because yeah, made it. But anyway, after that, then it started. I got in. I had really really bad trip, and then that's when things started hitting the fan. And then after that bad trip, started getting like a little depressed out of it. Then I went to school, had some drinking problems, like tore down the walls of my dorm one time because I was just so belligerent and drunk. I had the cops called on me by my best friend. They had to take me to the hospital and keep me there overnight. This was the second time I was spent a night at the hospital for doing something like kind of losing my mind basically while intoxicated. And then after that, then eventually I got introduced to Adderall in my second year of, or in my halfway through the first year of college. Then once I got introduced to Adderall, then it really, really took off. And then that 1 year span between winter of freshman year to when I got sober, winter of sophomore year, was just all day, all night, all the time, was always on something. And it really plummeted fast after that until it like exploded and then I got sober.
Was your family like? I know your friends were trying to help you out there, going to ER and stuff like that. Was your family aware of all this stuff?
So it was just my one friend who knew about. I mean, yeah. So they knew about. They knew about it. Yeah, they were.
What
So
were
they
they
were
saying?
always. They were supportive. Friggin' worried, scared. I mean, I was. You have to also know this. Like, I was a raging asshole through this period. That was probably my worst quality, and the hardest quality to overcome through sobriety was just rage. And so it's like impenetrable when somebody would try to tell me what to do or tell me that I'm doing something wrong in life. I mean, even to this day, when somebody gives me a critique or something, my first instance is to tell them, no, you're wrong. So, like, imagine that on a scale of like life and death, how quickly I can react, especially with my mental state being in the state it was. So, I mean, they're really supportive. They're the only reason I'm still alive today. But,
Yeah,
I was not
that's,
an easy person to live with.
I know a thing or two about that rage. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
I think
No, just go ahead, Marcos.
no, I think that arc so quick. Basically like a 4-year span, if that, right? 3-year span of like the introduction.
Yeah.
So your senior year in high school into, all the like, again, like sophomore year of college is when you basically like said nixed it. Like the the rate at which I think like the accessibility that becomes, it's like, oh, you like this thing, and then you can immediately get into this next thing, and then this next thing so quickly. Like you just, in a 3-year arc, doing things that I think most people would not even fathom, right? Like,
Yeah.
Especially like you just mentioned, like cooking DMT or some
Some
derivative of
DMT.
it. Like
Yeah.
I think it's like what you said though is like, our curiosity and our wanting to have like this, like, again, what other people talk about in those like out of body type of experiences or things that like is like altering your perception of it, is something that I think that was, when you said that, it was like that was very similar to how it felt in high school, even for myself too. It was like looking for that thing. Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Does it lead to more of this deeper understanding of the world, right? Was there a curiosity like that for you? Was that like kind of what happened once you got a little bit deeper into it? Like, 'cause first it was like an escape from like, I no longer have my athlete identity, right? Can't go do the sport that I love and train for it anymore. But like, were you searching for something?
It's like, so I think something that is also very much tied into all this is just a complete, like, there's no care for really like life and death. Like self-destructive tendencies are through the roof when you're in this state of mind, like through addiction. But
Yeah.
in that mindset, like I definitely was super wrapped up in trying to find this so I really like psychedelics, really, really like them. And I was always super excited to see like what they could do next. And trying to find those like, the concept of death and the afterlife and all that stuff is like pretty overwhelming. I don't know. And so I just heard that this stuff could give you an answer. And when I took it the first time, I felt like it could sort of guide me to some type of answer. I don't know. I always felt like I got something out of it. So yeah.
Can I ask, like, I contemplate death a lot. I mean, a lot. Like, I
Yeah.
practice a lot of playing with those frameworks, and I contemplate death a lot. What was overwhelming for you that like made you like go, okay, I need to find answers through different, frameworks through psychedelics?
Something. Well, it's like weird. So there's a lot of people in this world that don't think about death. And I don't know, like to me, and I guess you and I can agree on this, like I also think about death a lot. And I just think about like what it means and like, so if death exists, so what does it mean for our time here on earth? And I think with psychedelics, I was trying to find both what happens after and find my purpose
Mhm.
on earth. I think it was like a two-piece thing that
Wow.
I was trying to do. And so since I lost that identity, like Marco was saying, like I'm really young.
Mhm.
I'm 18 at this point. So like I'm not that much older than I was then, but like 18, life is so big. There's so much to do and this real grasp of we're going to die. So what am I doing here? I don't know. That just really all got caught up in my head and then ended up with
Yeah.
taking the psychedelic route. Because religion has been an interesting part of my life. I grew up pretty religious, fallen in and out with religion, and I'm still not really sure where I stand with that. So I feel like
Mm.
psychedelics could maybe be an easier route to try to find these answers.
Yeah. It's like,
And
I kind
that's
of would
sort of
say,
the thought process.
no, it's cool. I mean, it's kind of like an analogy. I like to use this one for weight loss clients. Just kind of, that's my experience, is like, look, you can lose weight in a year doing fitness and nutrition, or you can lose weight today paying for liposuction. they both do the same things, just different different ways to get to the same destination, right? Which one do you choose? Those a different feeling. Um, you know, it's interesting that you're looking. I think you had like a life shattering moment with the identity of an athlete. I was there. Whenever I get injured or hurt, you struggle with your identity of like, oh shit, am I benched? And then that messes with your whole thing. Like all my friends would know when something was up because I just was not my usual bubbly self. And then I couldn't express myself on the mats and wrestle. And then from there, it was like horrible. And yeah, you want to try to find something to appease the pain. Um, Unfortunately, I couldn't do the drugs just because I was drug tested and hydration tested all the time. And it wasn't something I was particularly into, just because of the fact, like, I don't know if I told this to you, Marcos, but like, drugs and I have a really weird relationship because I saw my best friend growing up start taking it. He changed. And then two of our best friends passed away one from another 6 months from each other. And it was kind of weird because I called it. I called it when we were like in our young teenage years. I kind of was like being cynical, but also at the same time, like being realistic. I was like, hey guys, like, I don't think I can particularly be around you anymore because you guys might die because of these drugs. Because they went from weed to acid to like everything you just said, right? In a matter of a short time. And the area we lived in Los Angeles, it was like so easy to get access to drugs, kind of like what Marcos is saying. And they changed a lot. They changed so much that like, I'd still hang out with them here and there just because, you're kind of fond and have memories of kids that were their lifelong friends, and then high school changes everyone. But as adults, like, it was weird because one of our friends died. He kind of had like, he had this weird ceremony, and I don't know why I said this, but I was like, I sent to the group of friends, I was like, I hope that we see each other again, but not under the same circumstances. 6 months later, we're seeing each other again under the same circumstances. Another friend passed away. In that four group of us, which were great friends from elementary all the way to high school, college. And then my best friend, who, like, he was like my tether to that whole community. He was like a brother to me. And his brother, his actual brother, and everyone in that friend group, it's the weirdest thing, Nick. I go to the funerals of these people and they're crying to me, hoping I could save him somehow because he was feeling suicidal at the time. And I was like, they put all this pressure on me to be like, Seamus, like, you're the only voice of reason in his life. And, we want you to be there for him. And I'm like, what do you mean? How am I supposed to be there for somebody, after all this trauma of two deaths, and then you expect me to be the hero? I can't do that. Like, you're the older brother. I'm, just somebody here. Like, I don't know. It's drugs is it's a weird persistent thing that's been in my life.
I think it's everybody.
Yeah, that
was like so Nick, you mentioned addiction and sobriety, and my dad, he's over I think he's over 2 years now sober after like 40 years of like alcoholism is the best way of putting it. Now, like, that was where he got like mean and nasty, and I think it got perpetuated by COVID. It was like like we were over at my parents' house every day, and like you would just see like the day like kind of go on, and then like him just changed like into this like different human throughout the day. There was like there was like the bubbly phase, and then it was just like the sloppy, and then there was just like the nasty, and just, oh my God, it was definitely like a moment where you see those things, and then you see, I mean, we basically extended an ultimatum to him. We're like, look, you're not going to see your grandkids if you don't get your shit together. Like, I was like, my wife's not going to trust you to be with your grandkids, knowing that thing you know, that demon is something that like you just really cannot control. And dude, I mean, he did it like cold turkey after 40 years, which is like the last thing you want to do with any level of like addiction. And like, just, I'm like, what? Like that could literally, now learning about like how bad it could be and can potentially kill you is pretty freaking insane. That like, that again, like willpower really can like will you through moments when there's things that like, again, like you do see the bigger picture. And I think with both of you mentioning that thing about like constantly thinking about like wanting to know more about like quote what's next. So like y'all are similar to my wife, and I'm kind of the opposite. Like I think about it, but like it doesn't consume me. It's like it's a global issue. Like it's something we all have to deal with, but it's not something that I can change. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
inevitable at some point. Like all I can do is enjoy each and every day to the fullest. Make sure I have like little, you know, micro goals for myself at this point, and then just try to make sure that like if today was like my last day, is there another place I wouldn't want to be trying to like strive to get to, essentially.
Yeah.
But you know, I think my wife, like, and you guys probably do the same thing. It's like you can start thinking about it, and then you guys ruminate on this idea very quickly, right? Like it's like a negative spiraling thought process that then leads down like to this like kind of cynical circle about like these ideas. And I'm just like, yeah, if you change that negative feedback loop, because it's negative thoughts feeding back into like more, and turn them into more positive ones, like I've found personally that that's made me far more happier, versus, you know, dwelling on what I couldn't get to. It's more about like what I got to instead, you know. But again, I know maybe it's just I've talked myself up into this thing over a number of years and just believe it. It's fucking ignorance, but who knows?
The cliches sometimes work out. Ignorance is bliss, you know? They work.
Dude, legitimately, that's like probably like one of the quotes I like quote all the time. I'm like, I want to be ignorant to that thing, because the more I know about it, the more that I can be like everybody else. That like, I mean, look, it's like phone's right here. Nothing's stopping me from going and doing deep research in something. You know, Dr. Google will tell you you're dying, you know, 7 different ways, but like it doesn't solve the issue.
Yeah,
And
no, Marco's like, I like to contemplate death, but in a way that's, I practice a lot of stoicism. So like, I like to tell people, I know Nick, you were saying like religion was part of your life. Like I grew up Christian Baptist. I'm Christian in faith, but I'm stoic in practice. It's kind of like a saying, I would say. I contemplate it to the point where I think about it to then get the most out of life, if that makes sense. Kind of like what Marcos was saying. Kind of like, yeah, I thought about it, but it's more about, hey, how do I create great goals for myself? Why am I actually here? I think I've answered that question for myself. I know why I'm here. I know what I'm doing. Now it's just more action and finding the right people in my circle to help me with that mission, if that makes sense. I mean, this is one of them, the macro perspective. Marcos is one of those guys. You're one of those guys. But like, you know, how do I create a deeper meaning to this life in my actions, in the way I serve, in the way I show up every day? But I think you're right. I think you have to sometimes go down a rabbit hole, and those rabbit holes might not be the most healthiest. They might not be, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you guys, yeah, I mean, those rabbit holes can be pretty brutal, but like, Seamus, you were talking about, I mean, I'm sorry to hear about your friends, dude. It's just brutal, man. It just sucks. And like Marcos with your dad, that sucks too. And it's something, you know, that is so common in America. Like literally it's so common. And then the biggest, like I feel like one of the biggest problems with it all is that people don't realize that they have a problem until it's too late, or until they're just so far into it. And then it ties back into what we're talking about with like finding the meaning of life and everything. There's just so many things in America. I mean, I could probably speak, it probably goes wider than America, but there's so many things that just block us out from trying to find meaning in life, whether it's eating shitty food doing shitty drugs, doing unhealthy things in general. Like, if more people just understood that, like, you only have one life, you are going to die. If you really tried to grasp that idea, I feel like more people would do less of the shitty things that they do, or at least try to stop them. Because I also have had friends, I've also had a friend who died through this, and it's just brutal. And we're only 22.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
sorry about the loss. I think you're right. You know, I think there's one word or maybe a few words that can kind of explain it, but like I think it's urgency. I think some people are just fine with things being copacetic. And this is like the exact, like, Marcos and I could talk about this all day, but like, why would one client be comfortable with where their weight is at, and all the lights, all the alarm bells are saying like, dude, you're in a horrible position, and they're like, eh. And then there's a person who maybe just goes up 5 pounds, maybe 5 pounds, and they're like, hell no, I will not let this happen. I think that's the urgency or identity or whatever it is. I think a lot of people, like you said, might be blocked from, well, however they're blocked. Maybe it was the way they're raised. It's what they feed into their mind, what they feed into their body. That's not allowing them to perceive themselves at a higher frequency or a higher level of being. And from there, they're just kind of comfortable with how they're living. Even if they're living in pain or living in a non optimal way. And again, nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I think tying it back to the sobriety thing and the drugs, like, Nick, you know how invasive like drugs are in the community that I was kind of like living in. I forgot to mention this, but there was a third person that passed away, unfortunately, in that friend group and all. But he said something along the lines of when one of our friends passed away, he kind of said something that was kind of weird, but also true at the same time. He said this, and I'll quote him. He said, well, what do you guys expect? And he was kind of being like, sarcastic or down, whatever he was feeling. He's like, it's West Hills. And that's like the area that I grew up in, which is kind of weird. Because I'll explain
Wow.
West Hills, Nick. West Hills is a nice suburban area in Los Angeles, in the Valley of California. Nice homes, beautiful schools, 20 minutes from the beach or whatever, 20, 30 minutes to Malibu. And that's what he said. He's like, what do you expect? We're West Hills kids. And I don't know what to take of that. Like, oh, it's just expected for people around West Hills to just kind of wilt away to drugs and just be kind of inundated into that lifestyle. Or it was kind of a weird thing for him to say, you know what I'm saying? But I guess that's how inundated it is in that culture and that society, that like people are like, well, what do you expect? This is what we do. And thinking about it now, it pisses me off because it's like, well, I expect more. If you're talking about a place that's like great suburban neighborhood, great schools, why not? Why aren't we achieving greatness? Why aren't we achieving excellence? Why are we succumbing to drugs?
Yeah, it's like not even just that. It's like, why aren't we trying to live? Like, I don't know. But I mean, so I was in that mindset where so I mean, I guess I can kind of speak on it a little bit, but just the day to day not caring, and your only fixation is something that's so draining. There's no winning through addiction. And so after a long enough time with that mindset, like it just keeps, it's sort of like that negative self talk that you were talking about, Marcos. I mean, I think like, drugs kind of has that same effect. The more you take, the more negative it just gets. And, I guess certain areas of the world are more affected, like maybe West Hills has more of a problem than, I don't know, Singapore. But it's definitely a
think it's
big problem in America.
Yeah, I think it's prevalent everywhere, guys. I think everybody's looking for an escape from reality because the reality sucks for whatever reason, or they view it that way. How do you bring more things into your reality that helps you stay focused? And kind of the core tenets that we're tethering this, to, like we were mentioning, Nick, was like, food, fitness, family, finance, focus, right? Focus being the mind, and really the mind really kind of controls the other four. So really you can maybe think of that one as maybe a step above the other, but they all work in synergy, right? Because food feeds the mind, fitness, then helps you make better food choices, and generally feeds the mind some other like positive rewards. The family structure, right? I purposely chose not to use the word faith in the in the 5 F's, because faith is something that a lot of new age people struggle with, and you can't take it into schools. So if these are core tenets and I want kids to have a backbone on something, you can't do something religious. It's like an immediate disqualifier, right? But family, right? Family, communal values, people you want to be around, right? Your community, that's the thing that like uplifts you. And I'm sure your community has changed quite a bit now, right? Like the people that you're around, I mean, maybe they came with you along the ride down, down sobriety lane, right? Or maybe you had to remove yourself from all
but yeah. Yeah, to the first
see,
part, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, to the first part. But so do you have like a new group of, like social surroundings or people that you're around more frequently now as a result of your own journey? Like, did it change? Did that family structure, that community change?
It's a gradual process because it's so hard. Like, when I first got sober and then could get that outside perspective of looking in on me and my friends, it's kind of like, oh my God, like what are we doing? Like, what are we looking forward to? What are these goals? And like, what do we really share in common? And, that's something that I would have never been able to ask myself until I got sober. So, I still, there's still like my really good friends and stuff, but it's definitely, I've learned and appreciated how to make and find new friends. I'm not so judging upon like other people because it's a really humbling experience. Like when I was not sober, like I was the number one guy to make fun of people who were sober. Or like if you even considered not getting blacked out, I was the guy who was on your ass like, we're drinking until we can't see. Like, what are you talking about? So when you have to go completely the other way, it opens, just like having to do that can open your mind to so many other perspectives, which has really helped me in terms of like making and finding friends. But yeah.
I have a question. For this because Nick, this is gonna sound really odd, but maybe you've thought about this, but like that addictive personality, like what you just said, that like, oh, we ain't stopping until whatever. It's kind of like almost the same personality of like winners in other areas of life. Have you transferred that like addictive personality to other things? Like I know for me, for example, like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, like the concept of like hard work, grit, I just use the same mindset. Like I'm just putting this thing down. Like, whatever it is, like if it's like a work thing, if it's a school thing, I'm like, this shit's just getting done no matter what. I'm running a brick wall through this guy. Like, have you tried to use that same, like leverage that same attitude?
It's again like another sort of like learning process because I wasn't too good at using it for good. It's there, but using it for good has been like I'm much better at it now. Like I can find a task and I get really like inspired and motivated and I'm like, let's go. But then again, sort of with the addictive thing is sometimes those things are only for a short period of time. So trying to pick something, stay with it, and see it through to the end is probably like my next phase of how I'm trying to bring that mindset into my life. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I only share because like I have an addictive personality or an obsessive compulsive personality. I mean, that's why I think wrestling and jiu-jitsu is a great sport for me because like I could just run it back. Win or lose, I could just run it back. Move didn't go right. That's cool. I'm just going to drill it 1,000 more times until it feels right. You know, but kind of during like COVID and like when my stepfather passed, I got addicted to video games. And then some other things and stuff like that too. But like video games was like the thing.
Yeah.
But like video games is weird in a sense that like, it's not necessarily like obviously drugs in a sense where like, hey, you're abusing, your body and your brain, right? Or you might abuse other people around because you're a danger. But like video games can be that thing where it's like you're addicted to accomplishment and achievement, yet it's like a fake or like a surrogate kind of accomplishment or like a surrogate kind of achievement, right? Um, and then you kind of realize like, yo, what am I winning here? I am like absolutely winning at nothing. I got the scoreboard of things, and nothing against video games. I mean, obviously you have to have a healthy, like you can have a healthy relationship with anything. For me, I'm just like, it's taken me a long time to be not extreme with whatever I do. And I know you talked about like anger before, but like, I don't know if you guys ever like rage quit before, but like, you know, throwing controllers across the room. Yeah.
You and my brother would probably have a good conversation about this.
No, exactly. But like what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say there is like when I quit like the video games and other addictive things, you know, I took that same mindset and I put it to like life, business, relationships, and it's like the same thing. Oh, this is like another level in the video game. Oh, I've got a business now. Oh, what's the next level? Oh, can we get this going to a point where it's making good cash flow? Oh, that's another level until you get to this level of cash flow. Or hey, you know, you have a family now, and it's kind of like the Sims video game. Like, oh, you have your family unit. You got to make the house, and it's like, you know, life is like if I was thinking about it, like life's like that video game, but obviously it's real and there's actual like risk and reward, and you know, there's truth to it, not a fakeness.
Yeah. I think there's something like important in that idea of like gamifying your life. I don't know, like I think it's a pretty good and a way to find like meaning and stuff, but I think something that you brought up that's pretty like crucial to what my ideas are, and I'm sure you guys have noticed this too, but you can make like anything a bad habit, you know? Because one of my friends actually brought something up he was my last guest on the podcast, and it was something I never thought about, but like being unhealthily, if that's a word, like addicted to the gym, where like all you care about is going to the gym. Like on a surface level, when you see somebody who's huge and jacked out of their mind, you're like, well, that guy's got it right. He's figured life out. But, you know, just like you were talking about with video games, because video games too can be something where it's like, okay, I went home and I played video games for an hour and now I can do everything else in my life because it was like that nice reset. Or I went to the gym for an hour, that nice reset. But like if it's all you think about, you know, I'm sure you guys got something to touch with that, especially with diet, right?
Yeah. Marco, so we know someone that we know people like that. We've been those people, but then also at the same time we know people like that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the unhealthy, you know, taking healthy things to unhealthy means is, I think, character flaws of damn near everybody. You know what I mean? It's I think it generally happens with something that's new and novel, but then the when you gain wisdom towards things, like you will go through phases that will lead to more pushing, which can again be unhealthy, like you just mentioned, but for a short-term goal, right? I can vouch for this right now. Our other company we work for, you know, it affords a lot of flexibility to do some fun stuff, and maybe I was making an excuse to not train as much, you know, because I'm like, I need to make sure work is getting done. Then they gave a challenge out, like, hey, we're going to give you a 3-day vacation essentially on the company's behalf if you win this rowing challenge. And now I'm taking it to like unhealthy levels to win this motherfucker.
Marcos, so like I didn't realize how competitive Marcos was until this happened. And I was like, I thought I was competitive and I'm over here like struggling to do like maybe 1/4 of what Marcos is doing. I'm like, I'm going hard. And Marcos is like, bish, I've been going hard.
Like, Nick, to put it into perspective, so I had to travel for work, so I'm in DC right now, and I got off my plane. Yeah, I'm on the East Coast from Vegas, right? Got off my plane last night. I actually had to call a patient because they were, you know, we moved the time and they were open to talking. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, I can't make it to the gym. It's like this, like again, like taking a healthy thing and making it unhealthy. I was like, but I need to hit this goal. And I was like, no, like you can just double up tomorrow. And I was like, I really don't want to spend an extra 20 minutes tomorrow doing this shit. And I was like, all right, I'll see where this call goes. Call gets done. I was like, if I get off on the next stop, because I'm taking the metro, because I'm also crazy like that. If I go one more stop, I got enough time. I'm gonna close that bitch down. I'm gonna get my 20 minutes in, and I'm gonna be like super accomplished today. And I went and did it. And again, like now, this is that a healthy choice during, you know, for what I would continue to do unless there's a challenge presented to me? Probably not, because I know it's not, the juice really isn't worth the squeeze. I probably need to go to sleep, right? That's probably the far better option. But right now, because I set this goal and I know it's only like 41 days of having to commit to it, that I'm like, I'm gonna get it done. And you know, then when I mapped it out, I was like, I'm gonna do double of what like the minimum buy-in is, which is 100,000 meters. And so I'm like, if I just do 20 minutes a day, that will, you know, over 40 days, that's 5K of rowing. I'm at 200K. Like that's plenty to beat everybody. And now it's turned into, I'm doing fucking 40 minutes a day because I'm gonna blow everybody out of the fucking water for no reason, other than just to say I did it, you know, like. But again, addictive personality to this fitness thing. And sometimes I think it's good to show you that like you kind of maybe need moments like that to like bring you back down to earth and understand that like that's not something that's sustainable. It's something that should come in spurts to just like mentally challenge you in a different way.
Okay.
And again, I'm just having fun. It's turned into fun though. It's like I know I have to sacrifice other gym performance to make that 40 minutes possible. And you know, it's kind of the ebbs and flows of training as it stands right now. And I think it's a good learning experience for people to put themselves in positions where there are these little, again, micro challenges that last maybe 3 months, you know?
Yeah.
In this case, it's
And
40 days.
mind you guys listening to this,
That's
Marcos
cool.
is going to blow it out the water for the 3-day weekend that he's not even going to go to. This mother trucker.
Yeah, I'm doing this full transparency, Nick. I'm doing this because I want our other company to donate to my nonprofit on behalf, instead of me taking in that and taking that like reward of being able to go to the event in Massachusetts in October. I want them to help support the cause that is helping other people get that community thing, because I think that that's like my mission, like my core statement right now is really driving and giving back to more and more people to have safe havens and outlets that allow them the opportunity to find happiness amongst other people versus vices, right? Like, you know, fitness can still be a
Yeah,
vice.
that's sick, man. That's badass.
Yeah, it's super motivating because I'm trying to do it for more people to like get involved. And the only way for these things to happen, you know, falls on the individual, on me at this point. And Seamus, I mean, if he didn't maybe have his little, you know, sickness plague him, he could be right there too. You know, he had a few days he had to take off, and
I took off. Now, being honest, I took off 3 days. So there's another guy. I took off 3 days, which shouldn't have put me. I should have still been in like second place technically, but because this guy joined, he gave us a week too. He gave us a week. He goes, I gave everyone a week head start, and then the first day he rocks everyone off the boat. He's like, I just did 10K rowing today, and I'm like, here. It took me a week to get to 10K. And I was like, oh, I'm doing really good. And then this guy over the weekend rows 2 marathons. So he's kind of neck and neck with Marcos now. And I'm just like, I'm still competitive. I'm still in this. I'll take third from a landslide, like first and second, then third. I'll take third.
yeah,
Whole nother level.
Yeah, this sounds a little insane. I've never even rowed, so I'm only now I can sort of get some perception. Or now that you brought up the marathon comparison.
Yeah, like a row, like a marathon. He rode a total of a marathon over like last weekend, which is 42K, which means his ass was sitting on this rower for about
4 hours?
almost like 3.5 hours, you know. And like it's seat time. It's like this, you know, repetitive thing. You're just in your thoughts, and he just went and did it, and he posted a picture of like, an hour and 50 minutes with he had a towel wrapped over his handle because it's humid as hell because he's in Philly. So he's like, I'm like,
let's
bro,
go.
like he literally is like, he needs a towel because otherwise his hands are gonna blister up. And I was like, see, that's what I'm trying to avoid. His name's Pete. I was like, that's what I'm trying to avoid, Pete, is like my hands failing me because I need to do it tomorrow. And there's still 20 more days for this, but I think sometimes friendly competition can help a lot of people understand that. And again, yeah, that's taking something that, again, a little bit each day, probably really healthy for your, metabolic health and your cardiovascular system. But then we're over here because we're just competitive assholes taking it to extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea though. The like micro, like maybe high intensity challenge, because yeah, I mean, so addiction versus like maybe passion, and like,
Mhm.
is there much of a difference? And should there be a difference? Is one better? Like I mean, I've said this before, but there's kind of like a meme that's like been around with alcohol. It's like, I'm not addicted, I'm passionate, and it kind of makes you think though about, yeah, it makes you think like, okay, wait, if somebody will so easily say that to describe how they run marathons that they're passionate, if they so easily say that they're passionate, whereas an alcoholic will say that they're addicted, like, there's a lot of similarities there. And so
I have a question for you, Nick, on
why?
that. I have a
Yeah.
question for you. So alcohol obviously is like such a normal thing in terms, I'm just gonna say quote unquote normal thing. It's like in society, like you go out, you go for drinks. Things like that. I don't drink. I really can't because I have psoriasis and it flares me up. And I mean, I'll just use that as an excuse to say like I won't drink, but I don't drink because I don't want to. It's not. I don't really care about it. But let me ask you, like,
Cool.
how do you like it being so accessible, it being such part of the social norm? What would you say to the audience for people to be like, well, if quote unquote, it doesn't have to be addiction as a challenge in their life or anything like that, but like, how do you find a place that you can enjoy something without abusing it? You know what I'm saying? Like, how would you recommend that being on that far end of the spectrum of being, having abused it and then seeing that like, hey, you have in your body and your health, like alcohol, like how would you say like, hey, you can use it, but you're not abusing it?
I only laugh at that just because, that's something that I've tried so many times. Everybody who goes sober, who believes that they're an addict, will always go through that phase of, okay, I'm only going to drink on weekends now, or I'm only going to. So, yeah. In terms of moderately drinking, I've tried it, cannot figure it out. And that is sort of something with me that is, again, something that I'm really trying to work on, because I also kind of take things to the extreme, and like, it jacks me up a little bit. Like I got really into running and I hate running. And so I ran a half marathon, but then I jacked up my knee and now I haven't been able to run. So that's just one example. But yeah, in terms of being able to moderately drink, I would just say try it. And if you can do it, good for you. But if you notice that every time you tell yourself, all right, I'm only going to have 3 drinks tonight, and you end up blacking out, then like check yourself, You got to do this, because there's so many people who will never even attempt trying that or see a problem in that. I don't know if that was a good answer.
No, I mean,
That's a real answer.
Moderation is something that I think a lot of us can easily lack, and like you just said, it's like, if you know that everybody has their hedonic tendency. My vice is food, probably because I don't drink, because I don't have like something else that can like, quote, calm me in a stressful situation. And
neither of you two drink?
No. Yeah.
Look at that.
I know. Yeah,
but I do use a bunch of different things to fluctuate my mood and focus. So I'm quote unquote like the biohacking. I kind of like do like, play with caffeine and play with other stuff, but I don't, again, don't abuse it. Don't abuse it.
The last time there was like a wild night, was the conception of my son. And that was with my wife, obviously. And she likes to be in control of her mental state at all times. So she doesn't like to drink. And I'm like, truth be told, if there's no ass to be got, like there's no point in getting wasted for me. Like, so I'm like, all right, it's really easy because again, like I won't say that it's off the table for me completely, but it literally would depend on like her being like, I just want to like let loose and cut loose, and that hasn't happened in our marriage, since our son has been born. So, or the conception of, when that's over 6 years now. So yeah, needless to say, it's really easy to say no when your partner has similar qualities that you also value so much. So for us, it's more of like a gym addiction, right? And most of our arguments are like fighting about gym time. And, like, I'm like, sometimes your fucking gym time is like so inconvenient because of X, Y, the Z thing isn't getting done for, and it goes both ways. She's like, really, you just like can't take today off? And I say the same thing to her. And it's like, I mean, if that's like our issue is like something that like, again, is really only an hour and a half of our day. Like, again, that's just us, like not having anything else really going on in other areas at times. So yeah, like I know for Seamus, again, flares up psoriasis issues, and that's not worth the juice. Ain't worth the squeeze. Ain't worth the squeeze for me, because I'll know I won't be able to go to the gym probably for 2 or 3 days because I'll feel like dog shit.
Yeah.
So, like I'd rather wake up feeling rejuvenated. I think a lot of people don't know how good they can feel until they felt amazing. Again, I probably have similar issues when I wake up after a day where I just don't give a fuck about what I consume. I'll go through the pantry. What do we got? What do we got? And most of the time it's like this. We joke about this in the Las Vegas clinic for Synergenics. We called it sport eating. And one of the other health coaches there would be like, I was like, you don't like blueberry muffins or stuff like that? She's like, I don't eat healthy foods in my junk food. And I was like, it's still a muffin. I'm like, it's still a muffin. There's plenty of sugar there. She's like, nope, they can't cross contaminate. And I'd laugh my ass off. And she,
yeah, that's pretty funny.
I love that mindset. I love that mindset because it's like it has to be unhealthy junk food, not like a kind of like healthy style, because it has to be that full mental frame of like I'm going all out.
And mind you, this individual, she always jokes, she's like, I'm gonna open up a donut shop and then take all the proceeds and invest in semaglutide or diabetes, like metformin medication. Like she jokes about that because she's like, I'm gonna just fuel more business because like here's the solution to said problem, quote, take these drugs that can alter or enhance your ability to then eat the junk food. And like
that'd be a hell of a pitch.
She's like, yeah, all the proceeds go to this investment into Pfizer. It's just like, oh yeah, like, it was always just like a running joke that she continues to use to this day. And it's funny, like she would never obviously do that. Like we're in the business of like really trying to get through to people, but changing people is a very difficult thing to do. And our jobs as health coaches can be very difficult at times because, well, they didn't come seeking us, they came seeking doctor intervention. So a lot of things that we will say, which again is very rooted in science of like habits and things that they can do to like really build wins, can immediately get undermined if our doctors are not on board with like this, like the same kind of like lingo and language. And it's something that I've had to learn in the last 5 years to really like make sure, like in my debrief to a doctor, right, another person who has more alphabet soup after their name essentially, right, is preaching the same thing. And so it's just reinforcing the exact same type of like almost like cognitive conditioning for that patient. And it's very different for that practice versus just working one-to-one with people who seek me out, because they're going to take what I'm going to say as like, the holy grail essentially. So it's been a lot of learning. It's just like you said, you're like, hey, you're 22 right now. At 22 is when I like broke into nutrition coaching, right? Maybe a little bit sooner than that. And I always wondered, I was like, why am I having such a hard time coaching these people? And now as I've gotten older, 8 years later, it's like, oh, I know why. If these people aren't seeking me out, they don't really want anything to truly do with me. They just couldn't afford the person they were actually seeking out. So that's been like another big step in like working in nutrition coaching for as long as I have, is understanding, different psychologies of people. And just like with like, again, addictive personalities or people that come in and say they're going to get their health in order. Sometimes I really want to prompt the question of like, have you hit a proverbial rock bottom yet? And it's like, are you so decrepit or in such a bad state that like literally you're going to go and apply this thing? Are you going to go home and throw out your entire pantry right now? Because if not, you're not truly committed to this process. And
dude,
yeah,
a lot of similarities.
The
first thing I thought when you brought up those like five F's, like I was thinking like, because I've had some people reach out to me, and like I'm no like coach or anything. I'm just a young person who got sober. And, there's not a lot of us, especially who will go out and like say it. And so I've had some people who are young reach out to me and be like, dude, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you go out at 5:00 on a Friday and hang out with people? And so, but what I'm like, the same similar things with like the rock bottom that you're talking about. I feel it like, in my mind, I feel like a path that people could take is like, they come ask me how to get sober, and then they go to you guys to like optimize their life. You guys are like the optimizers. And then with me, with the sober, trying to get people, like, it's just get them into the game.
I think
Dude,
your message is more
takes a
about,
village.
yeah, I think your message really is more about speaking upon sobriety from experience and, teaching people like the mindset maybe, especially to like a younger crowd. I think they're definitely a little bit more attuned to that because they might be feeling it, they might be stuck on their phones and they might be, not feeling like they're fitting in, or they might be losing an identity. Like they were an athlete, they tore their ACL and now they're not playing pro ball, or they're not playing, D1 ball again, kind of. And, I think your message is important, especially to those young manipulative, minds that are so open to manipulation. Like you have to have different voices of reason. And I think yours is one of those. So I love that. And yeah, if they want to come get coached or whatever, or, there's a whole network of people that they can work with us or others about like fitness, nutrition, or lifestyle. Because obviously addiction and the addiction model is it's a deeper level, right, Marcos? It's such a, it's a hard bargain. I wanted to touch one thing though, Nick. I think, one of the things that Marcos was saying was like the hedonic treadmill. Man, it is very difficult to kind of just play in the middle, right? People want, and I'm just going to say the word drama, but not in a bad way of drama. Just feel like people just want things to happen. They want to feel like they're in like a movie or some sorts, or they're in a story of some sorts. And they're like, well, I want the highest of the highs, and I guess I'll have to handle the lows. It just seems like sometimes that, and I'm not talking about drugs. I'm talking about like just life overall. I think sometimes people want the guts and glory, but they don't want the A through Z journey of the daily boring work, if that makes sense.
Dude, I was also trying to come back to it too. But yeah, our like humans across the board seem to hate balance. So I feel like us three in our own ways are all trying to show that balance is good, and going through stages of ups and downs is going to happen, but doing it in an unnecessary way or a crazy way, like, I don't know, at least become aware that you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that though, Nick, because with the 5Fs maybe being like the framework of whatever, we're still hashing out what that actually, like, the name of that thing is. Like, we know that those are like the pillars in like the nutrition model that we're trying to like create and curate to like help people understand what they do. We have 5Bs, and the 5Bs are baseline, build, balance, burn, and beyond. Right? So balance is in the middle, because that's where most people are going to spend most of their life. And you have to know, like, nutritionally speaking, what balance actually looks like. What's a balanced life for you? There's obviously indicators from a health perspective, and there's also indicators from a performance perspective. But, a lot of people don't sit down and think about like what it actually truly means to be balanced. and it's different amongst all of us, you know. Balance day or balance, I won't even say like, it's not I no longer look at things in the course of a day, because shit happens, right? Like, but balance happens on a weekly basis in my eyes. How do I have the most balanced week possible? There's 5 days of training, there's 2 days I take off, right? That's balance from my fitness perspective. From a food perspective, it means pizza with my wife, typically on Thursdays, because, well, Thursday night football, you know, and that just always seemed to be the day that we would get pizza. So I look forward to that. And you know, like that's the state that I want to live in. But a lot of times too, in balance phases, or when you're actually in balance, sometimes that hedonic treadmill does come back and you start to maybe slip a little bit more, and you have to go back to understanding, like, where's my baseline? What am I doing right now? You know, what is in my life? What current, you know, restrictions are occurring in life? What constraints do I have? What boundaries do I need to put up? And, you know, doing a self audit for younger people is something that's not sexy. You know, that's why, like, people are like, oh, like, if you just journal, like you do this 5-minute journal, you do this, you do that. Like, you know, it's all just gonna, like, it's all gonna hit you in the face. I think in my eyes, so I had a background of teaching for a little while in my early 20s, and you know, it's just learning requisite skills that help you, and finding what's best for you is going to constantly change as you age. I used to think digital mediums would be everything I do. I actually get way more value on writing stuff down, because if I took the time to actually put it pen to paper, it's more meaningful to me. So, like, again, like, I'm not a psychologist. Actually, I really maybe go back to school and, like, dive deeper into it, because the highest branches of math, which is my actual degree, and psychology actually intertwine. Philosophy actually, but more or less the same, very logical reasoning. You're like, yeah, your eyebrow raises. Yeah, like, so you have models of math at the highest level. It's all logic-based reasoning. Same with philosophy. It's like creating a semantic structure behind words, essentially, which can turn into a math equation. It's pretty.
Yo.
Yo. If
it sounds like you're gonna break the matrix.
It really does.
I don't know if I told you, but I got lost in logics problems. Like, I remember my professor was like, some of you guys are going to do logics problems for 8 hours because you got to turn something in and get a grade. And then some of you guys are going to do logics problems for 8 hours because you already figured it out in the first minute and you just love that shit. And I did. And it was like, well, you know me, Marcos. I love Rubik's Cube. So it was like patterns. And I was like, oh, these are just all patterns.
Yeah. Pattern acquisition.
Yeah, I don't know how I do on that.
You should, I mean, if you have an offering for an elective class that's like symbolic logic, I highly recommend it. It's a very, like, symbolic logic. Yeah. If you can find a way to get that. It's a very interesting way of, like, also, like, again, it's understanding these ideas of, like, again, bullshit arguments, essentially. It's like,
yeah,
if a Smurf is blue, and blue is something else, then through, like, logical reasoning, you can actually have a logically sound argument, or an argument that is like a tautology. There's just it's been so long since I've studied it, so I don't remember all the things, but it was basically like, if an animal is a dog, right, and a dog or a cat is an animal, therefore a dog is a cat, right? Like, it follows this structure, which technically could work based on logical reasoning, but obviously we know that, like, a dog and a cat are not the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Mind bending.
Yeah, they call it like sound and unsound arguments, and then like sound and unsound arguments, and then like something else, like you have to have like a third proposition in there or whatever.
Yep.
Honestly, we're about to go into derivatives, Nick. Like, it's about to, like you said, below the matrix. No, it gets too nuanced.
But I mean, like, those are the problems of my, like, higher thinking, whereas, like, other people's might be more related to
death.
Again, like, the death thing. It's like, but like you just said, like, you're the way that you get your gears turning, if you can turn it to these things that, like, isn't it funny how nuanced the world is, and how much out there that, like, you know, you could potentially explore in a very, like, again, like, very, like for me, it was like a mathematically minded way of viewing the world. It got me into these deep, again, rabbit holes that I was just like, I continue to still be so perplexed by. Like, you know, mathematically speaking, we know the fourth dimension exists, right? Like this idea, and that's technically where we could be like, hey, like the higher power, like rooted in literally faith, this idea
Dude,
of
you're gonna
higher
have
power.
to text me this stuff.
I know. Rooted in faith is this idea of higher power. In math, there's this idea of higher power. We know based on all of our math reasoning that all this math still works, even though we can no longer describe it on a graph, like on a model that you can actually see. So a lot of this stuff, once you get to these higher levels or higher orders, for again, like an x to the fourth power, right? As soon as you try to graph this in 4 dimensions, you can no longer do it, right? But we know we can do math with it based on all the same rules. So that's where I started actually believing, hey, math and religion actually have these weird inner workings with one another. And a lot of the words that they were using in math and also religion are correlated. It was fucking wild. Also, it makes sense because, again, a lot of the philosophers of way back when were high-level mathematicians. So these people that were trying to like,
dude, have you made a podcast on this stuff yet? Because I think I got an idea for your next podcast.
Well,
yeah,
I don't know
like
how many people would be.
Marcos. I don't know. We get lost in the fucking weeds. Sorry for the language, guys, but like we get so lost in the weeds, like it's just like almost mental masturbation at that point.
Well, but
bro, you guys gotta bring someone who does this for a living, and then you guys are like the students talking to them. Because I'm like a student, but I'm like I don't know anything, and then you guys are like higher than me. But imagine if you guys got
but that's
a lot higher.
It's all students of life.
But again, we're constant students. I mean, the class that we're in currently, Nick, like it's been very a very big derivative of coaching and like psychology and understanding how to deal with people better in coaching processes. And it's been like leaps and bounds in the last 4 months, right, Seamus? That like
we're like, almost done.
Oh, like we're almost done, and it's like, whoa, like the practicality of it for something that was literally meant to like potentially what started off as like, again, getting a new credential, you know, something that like moves you up and maybe a pay scale or something, then had so much value that I didn't know what kind of like happened. But like that's like, I think that's the biggest message, is that when people start to feel a certain way or they're looking for an escape, in my eyes, that's when they need to go back to being a student. It's when you probably have the time to actually do it. You know, there's different pressures when you're in your undergrad. It's like there's the social pressure and like having fun and like this idea of networking. But the best time to be a student is probably in your early to late 30s.
Yeah.
You know a little bit more about the world and how most of your money is getting paid in taxes and all these things that you're having to juggle simultaneously. But yeah, like but it all boils back down to like that thing. When you start to get to these levels, or you're dealing with these new nuances of life, you can either embrace them and try to seek out more people that can help you, or you might seek out something that helps you escape from it, you know? And that's where I think, you know, in your route to becoming sober and, you know, continuing to preach about sobriety, it opens these doors to a lot of stuff that you may have missed, man. You honestly may have missed.
Dude, me talking to you guys would have never happened if I didn't both get sober and start a podcast. That's just a fact. So, I mean, proof is in the pudding. There you go.
Yeah, tell us about your podcast, though. Tell us about your podcast. I know we're coming up over an hour. I just want to make sure we're good on time. But, like, tell us about your podcast. Like, do you just get people on there casually, like your friends or people that are specific, like, in the addictive world, or, like, professionals in that place? Or, like, how does that look like, so our audience can kind of maybe listen to you if they're piqued their interest?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I mean, so it's called All Cap No Brim, hence this hat. So basically what I've tried to do so far, but I got like some ideas about where to take it, but what I've done so far is I've done one solo episode where I kind of gave my story. And then what I've done is I brought on friends of mine who have at least tried something sober, because I want to be able to bridge the gap a little bit, because when people hear somebody who's just sober, that might just be an immediate, okay, no way, not going to try that. But if they see someone who's like not sober, but at least is sober curious, like they'll talk about it, they've tried it. So I try to talk to them to get a wider audience to see that you don't have to be like some outcast of society to be sober at our age. You can try it in a different way, and maybe you should become an outcast in that way. So eventually I'm going to bring on people who are also sober like me, professionals. I mean, yeah, I have no plan on stopping it anytime soon, but so far that's how it is, how it's gone.
How long you been doing it?
Not long, like 2 weeks.
I
Hey,
love it, man.
and you did it though.
So,
You did it though. You
yeah,
freaking did
yeah.
it though. That's 0 to 1, bro. I'm telling you right now, 0 to 1 is harder than 1 to 100. You did it. So congrats, man. That's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? That's something that I kind of have been telling myself too. Like that the first day sober, admitting to yourself that you need to be sober, that's a tough step. Starting this podcast was very similar feelings going on in my body. I'm like, who the hell wants to hear me talk about being sober? But yeah. So it's cool that you think that.
I like our conversation. I think the adventures in this all cap no brim. I love that, dude. All cap no brim. Dude, who are you? Like, I guess that's why you have your degree in business and marketing. That's pretty awesome. I mean, dude, all cap no brim. I mean, honestly, I think people need to hear the conversation more. I think honestly, your audience of like what you said, like the younger audience. I think now. I mean, Marcos and I can probably relate because we're just a little bit older than you. But I mean, we've seen how we travel around the country. We serve people in this country. We help people in this country. We go into schools and we go work in nonprofits for this country. And I mean, I used to be a coach for wrestling for a company called Beat the Streets. It's a nonprofit that their saying was, hey, we are making the leaders of tomorrow, right? And, you know, I keep a pulse on the youth. I keep a pulse on people. You know, there's 2 athletes that right now I'm so proud of them because they're going to be juniors and seniors in high school and they're getting scholarships being wrestling athletes in college. But I know how invasive drugs can be in that time, that really manipulative time. And people need to hear more stories of, hey, you know, maybe they did have a challenge with it, they got back, or they need to find more stories of finding to make sure that they don't abuse it, or, you know, maybe they tried it and moved on, or maybe they just don't try it at all and they find their why earlier. And I think you could be the voice of reason for them because you've been at the tail end, you've been at that rock bottom, and you've seen the worst of it.
Yeah, man.
And we need more of that in this country. We need more people speaking truth. We need more people speaking so we can not manipulate, but like influence these minds to be better for themselves. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, why not? And I'm really happy you did make the pod because now you're gonna start influencing kids. I think that's gonna be freaking powerful, dude.
Dude, I mean, I've already seen, like, I've kind of already reaped a little bit of the benefits. Like, I've literally had people reach out to me being like, damn, dude, like, you got me thinking differently about my drug and alcohol use, or even straight up, like, how do I, you know, like, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it's like, I mean, I've been doing this for 2 weeks and, like, you know, somebody might actually change. So, yeah. Definitely finding some why in here.
And, you know, it starts with one message, then 10, and then it's, I mean, it knows no bounds, man. I mean, we're going on 9 months, 10 months at this point, and what started as like, I mean, the first episodes were, again, like rough. There was no format. There was nothing that we could think of. And then it's now kind of transitioned. And I still think we need to get back a little bit to the roots of helping people with some of the fitness and food stuff a little bit more, you know, like splicing that in there, because that is definitely like a core identity of like who we are. But like in this journey to try to first start just like with helping others with like breaking the norms of food understanding and diet culture, it turned into like, I mean, realistically, it's like a period of self-enlightenment for us. So like if other people may not be reaping the benefits, at least you are. And then you learn how to maybe like curate the message better, and then, you know, really stumble upon the niche even further. And it's, I mean, there's nothing, it's not time wasted if it's helping you. That's like the best thing that like I can say at this point. What is, I mean, this is
I'm writing that one down.
Yeah,
Next time I'm thinking about stopping it.
Well, in order to be selfless, you must be selfish. That's what I tell clients all the time. You are no good to you are no good to anybody else if you cannot first be good to yourself. Right? So you have to battle whatever demons it is that's going on with you. and things that like, again, constantly get you, turning you down and not being like the most optimized version of yourself in order for you to get there. And, time and time again, I look back at like this journey for us so far. I think this is, again, episode like 62 at this point. And actually probably more, 65 probably, because we have some banked. But nonetheless, it's like now we have episodes banked. We're starting to build a team of people to try to help like get this out more, and learning nuances of like how to engage and have conversations with more and more people,
Yeah.
Like, again, in 2 weeks, like you just said, like you're getting messages, you're getting, you're, at least if you're influencing your circle of people at your university, man, like, you don't have to reach virality and go worldwide or, statewide, and, just make an impact in like on your campus first, because then the message gets spread to other things, and I don't know if you want to do public speaking or what, like, but like it, dude, so many doors open, and practicing this skill of like talking to a theoretical audience has been something that's been so impactful. And I know Seamus and I, like, that's probably the one thing, if anybody got to this point, they, if again, like, learn how to build this skill because it's fun. Like, don't do it because you think you're gonna like blow up and have a YouTube channel with 1 million subscribers, like our previous episode that dropped yesterday. And even then, it comes with a different headspace. He talked about the struggles of dealing with the ebbs and flows and the highs and lows of like his content creation, and how taking a particular risk may come back to bite him now that he's reached 1 million subscribers on YouTube, right? And
I saw that guy.
Right, and he, even he's like, this still doesn't pay the bills at 1 million subscribers. We're like, oh, I thought if we got to 1 million, we'd be making some money on this shit. Like, only to find out.
Really?
He does, but it's not to a point where he can quit his 9 to 5. He's like, and he said this really well. What was it, like, I keep my 9 to 5.
I have it here. I have the quote here. My 9 to 5 is what keeps me alive. Yeah, my 9 to 5 is what keeps me alive. My 5 to 9 is what makes me feel alive. My 9 to 5 is what keeps me alive. My 5 to 9 is what makes me feel alive. Honestly, like,
that's going in my Google Doc of quotes.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I always tell Marcos is lessons in futility, doing things with sometimes no point other than the thing. There's this movie and there's this documentary, but one of my favorite business leaders, he wrote a book called "I'd Let My People Go Surfing." He created a company, Patagonia, Yvon Chouinard, I think. There's literally a documentary, and this guy's been hiking, rock climbing, walking all around the world, like, just because that's who he is. And he's like, one day he just literally said, he's like, yo, why the hell are we filming this? Like, we're just climbing a damn hill and then we're coming back down. Like, that's it. That's what that's it, But like, the movie was world renowned. It was on Netflix, and he has Patagonia as a company has been around for a long time. He's like, literally the whole concept of Patagonia is the mountain Patagonia, and like that area of Patagonia in South America, I believe. It's just, you're climbing a hill and you're coming back down. And like, that's what it is. But that's the point. That is the point. And I think if anyone can take anything from what Marcos is saying or what you're saying, is like sobriety. Like, that's the point. Being in the middle, that's the point. That's it. And you will find yourself, you'll find your why, you'll find something, if you just keep playing that path, And sometimes it's a lesson in futility. Sometimes there is no point. Sometimes there is no, if A plus B, I'm going to get C. No, just, I'm doing this just because. I don't need a because either. I just do this because is what I do.
Yeah.
That was cool. You had me a little bit lost, but then when you tied it back into sobriety, it all made sense to me, for real. So I like that. I like that story you just painted there.
Yeah. Marcos, why don't we finish this up? I know we're coming up on an hour and a half. I just want to make sure Nick's all good. But Nick, anything where people can find you? Anything else?
Well, 2 things. One, the only thing I don't like about podcasts is ending them. But yeah,
true.
It's always fun. I always like getting on these. So Thank you guys for having me on. You can find me YouTube as of right now, all cap, no brim. I'm working on Spotify. I have some episodes there, but yeah, mainly YouTube.
Sweet. We'll have that linked in the show notes then. And yeah, man, just thanks for your time, kind of giving that arc and story, and letting people know that you're, again, embarking on this journey and you're still relatively like new to it, but you're already seeing the benefit of getting more people to try to relate to this lifestyle. And I think a lot more people can see a lot of benefit. It used to be such a big social norm, drinking and outings, and it actually is honestly something I really forget to ask about in consults with nutrition all the time. Is like, how much do you drink? Because it's like, I just assume that the people are coming here and they're going to give that up because they're ready to make that step. So they need more people to kind of discuss, what that might entail from that like mental perspective. So I wish you nothing but like the best success, man, on your journey of trying to, continue to just inspire more people, at your level right now. And then, like you just said, all cap, no brim. Hopefully it takes off and launches, and more and more people come on, and they get to have fun and discuss, like, hell, kind of have that opposition view like you talked about. More people kind of like that, as we found. So for everybody that listened, please go give Nick a follow, a subscribe as well. Listen to a few of his episodes. As he said, he's getting it on multiple channels. So we know that YouTube can sometimes be a harder one for people to maybe delve into, because it's maybe not as app friendly to just have audio going on in the background, because damn, YouTube doesn't work that way sometimes. And yeah, I mean, this was great, man. Again, nothing but the best success for you and your endeavors, and for everybody else listening. Again, like Seamus said in the beginning, give us a like, give us a follow, help spread this story a little bit more, help Nick get a few more people to hear the story he's trying to put out there to the world. And we'll see you all next time.
All right.